The deadly terror attack in Pahalgam, in which we lost 26 of our citizens, has again escalated tensions between India and Pakistan. The global community is united in condemning it, and so has the United Nations Security Council. But many see UNSC's statement as inadequate. Joining me now is Syed Akbaruddin, former permanent representative of India to the United Nations. Mr. Akbaruddin, the attack near Pahalgam has once again brought Kashmir into global headline. How do you interpret the global reaction? India has strongly condemned the attack and pointed fingers across the border. Do you see the international community aligning with India's position, or is there still a reluctance to call out Pakistan directly?
Maria, I don't think there is any doubt in anybody's mind that this was a dastardly attack. The Meadow massacre it has struck a chord not only in India, but across the world, because it was against civilians. It was in a manner which we haven't seen in the recent past. So there has been global condemnation. There has been articulation of support for us. And there has been a concern that these issues could lead to a larger configuration, because India now has the right to self-defense after an attack on Indian civilians in such a horrific manner.
Mr. Akbaruddin, what is your view on the current approach of major countries? Let's talk about United States, China and Russia towards this tension. And China in particular has been an all-weather friend of Pakistan. There have been some mixed messaging also from Trump administration. On one hand, Donald Trump, within hours of this terror attack, spoke to Prime Minister Modi. Then you had their chief of intelligence say that they are ready to walk along with India in countering terrorism. And then comes the reaction from the US president again on a train. So how do you view it?
Maria, it's normal in pluralistic societies that there could be some differences or some gaps between one agency and the other. It's normal in institutions where there are very diverse views expressed at different levels. But having said that, I don't think there is any inconsistency in the broad condemnation. On that, there is no difference of opinion. Yes, there could be differences of opinion among individual diplomats. There could be differences of opinion among some segments of the some institutions, asking for some more information, wanting some more clarifications. But that's normal. But I don't see a fundamental divergence in the broad trajectory in the United States, because they have suffered from terrorism. They understand that India has been a victim of terrorism for quite some time. So that broad consensual approach to India being a victim of terrorism, also that the fingerprints of this terrorism are sourced to Pakistan, that again is not a issue that has been challenged in any of these statements.
What about the Chinese, sir?
The Chinese, are a different kettle of fish. We've seen that in the past. It's not new that they have stood with Pakistan, even trying to help egregious instances of terrorism when they came out in support of Pakistan in some manner or the other. In fact, it was the Chinese which delayed the designation of Masood Azhar as a global terrorist for years. The only way we could get them finally to agree was to up the ante to such a level, saying that we will have an open meeting of the Security Council. You will have to veto this in public. Are you ready for it? And that was not a price that the Chinese were willing to pay for their all-weather friends also. That's why they backed off in 2019 after the Pulwama attack. But it was a lot of effort, a tremendous amount of global effort that we made. And therefore, we do understand the Chinese have always, for geopolitical reasons, not on case-by-case basis, but for geopolitical reasons, stand with Pakistan. And that will always be a challenge. but it's a challenge we have overcome in the past. And I don't see, with the will that we have, that we would not be able to overcome again should that divergence arise again.
So, India, in fact, held a meeting with 30 envoys within hours of the dastardly attack. Home Minister Amit Shah was on ground to make an assessment of where did we go wrong. India has blamed cross-border terror groups. My question is, in your view, has the global community done enough to hold Pakistan accountable?
So, Maria, we need to understand the global community is an amorphous concept. There is no such thing as a global community. It depends on who you address, etc. Having said that, we also need to understand that institutionally, the mechanisms to address peace and security are not as strong today as we would want them to be. The mechanisms, for example, the Security Council, let's just take that as an example. It's an institution formed in 1945 to address challenges of peace and security in 1945. The world has changed since then. Obviously, the Security Council is no longer fit for purpose. It cannot address those threats which are of a new nature, which are not envisaged in its charter. So it will only come up with suboptimal solutions. And we need to accept that that's not the platform where we will need to try and legislate this process, because that platform doesn't suit addressing it in either judicially or politically or technically matters of terrorism. Because the definition that it uses is terrorism is individual. It doesn't link states to terrorism. So there is no concept of terror state in the UN. All they have is individuals are designated, groups are designated. This notion of states acting as sponsors of terror is not a concept that they have internalized, and therefore you will never get full satisfaction there, and therefore we don't need to go down to that platform at all.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for speaking to NDTV.